Hello and welcome to Morning Brew on Politics Social. I am Graham Hughes. Nice to have you on board. We've got Martin Harrow, we've got Shropshire's Chris, we've got Richard Grumpy Git. We have got Chris C. We've got Gillian Hope in there as well. Thanks for hanging on for me. Obviously, we're half an hour later than we normally are, and I was another 8 minutes late on top of that. So sorry about that. It's a Sunday service. What do you expect? Anyway, it's Sunday the 20th of July 2025. I am Graham Hughes. And you are watching Morning Brew on Politics Social. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat, all you need to do is find that little subscribe button under the video, or somewhere next to the video, or on top of the video, I don't know, and click on it, or tap on it, or, you know, just press it on your nose, and wait for 1 minute, and then you'll be able to join in with the chat. So today we're going to be talking about incompetence, which is funny, because I'm literally 38 minutes late getting this started. Start as you mean to go on, Graham. That's what I always say. So what I want to talk about is essentially there's been a few big public failings recently, and I want to get into this because this is just nuts. This is just really crazy. In Britain, you can sexually harass staff at the Home Office. You can let activists waltz into an RAF base on scooters. You can leak Afghan allies' details straight to the Taliban. You can let the rivers fill with shit. You can botch entire train projects at the cost of billions to the taxpayer. And somehow you just move on. No one seems to get sacked. No one seems to lose their pension. No one even loses face. How? How is this? How have we got into this situation? I mean, it's almost like this school is run like a bloody private school reunion where the only crime you can commit is being a grass. So let's talk about, first of all, this mad story that was in the Guardian this morning. So there's a guy called Steve Dan, right? Border Force chief, right? In charge of stopping those migrants coming over the water in their little boats. They're taking everything from me. They're not taking everything from you. Is your restaurant not doing too well? Is that the problem? Well, I'll tell you why your restaurant ain't doing too well, mate. It's not the immigrants. It's not the immigrants. Because, you know, the thing is that the rich have become twice as rich as they were 10 years ago, whereas the rest of us have become at least 10% poorer than we were 10 years ago. And when you take it into relative poverty, as in how much stuff that your wages buy, it's halved. It's actually halved. The amount of bang for your buck now has halved. And yet the rich have doubled their wealth. Why? Because they own all the property. The Tories made a net loss of 170,000 houses in their tenure from 2010 to 2024. At least, actually, probably the true figures over 200,000 net loss of houses while the economy was growing. And the thing about rich people is this. There's only a few of them, and they only eat once a night. They don't eat at multiple restaurants. They'll go to one restaurant and stay there. And yeah, maybe they will spend a few £100 more than the rest of us plebs. But if you've only got one person in your restaurant, you're not going to turn a profit, are you? You're not. You're just not. But now, none of us can afford to eat at restaurants. You can't afford to go out into a bar and get absolutely hammered anymore. It's too bloody expensive. I mean, if you have a bar and you have one person in the bar buying loads of expensive drinks, it pales into insignificance compared with having 1,000 people in that bar buying inexpensive drinks. Where do you make the most profit? So yeah, that's the setup, isn't it? That's the setup of life right now. But apparently it's all the fault of immigrants, right? So this guy is in charge of Border Force, right? And he is he's a diversity. He was a diversity-led people's champion at the Home Office, right? And yet he suggested, this guy Steve Dan, working for Border Force, right? This guy, his day job is to stop migrants coming and taking all our jobs, and you know, not buying our food, not going to our restaurants, clogging up our NHS with their doctors and nurses coming over from other countries to prop up our NHS. He's been found to have made wildly inappropriate sexist comments He's talked about fluffers. He's talked about people having porn star names. He's talked about sweaty menopausal women. And worst of all, he suggested that the team do a round of naked attraction. I mean, you know, if you're down at the pub with your mates, that might be a funny thing to say. But when you're at work, it's completely inappropriate. Absolutely, massively inappropriate. And yet, he walks away with a clean record and slides into a cushy private sector job in security consultancy. We just let them get away with it. We've looked at Donald Trump in America and gone, should we really punish people who are like posh and rich? I don't think so. I think we should have a two-tier system where only we have to abide by rules, laws, norms, and, you know, standards of decency, common sense. And his grievance was held up on appeal, but he avoided any consequences because the internal process had already been concluded. Like, fucking, I mean, is this Naked Gun? But it's it's the civil service. It's the bureaucracy. Do you know what I mean? Just running around like fucking clowns, slipping on cream pies. Oh God, I shouldn't talk about cream pies, should I? But like, no one up the chain really wants to push this. Why? Because senior mandarins protect their own. Go back to this private school system of prefects and not grassing people up, and no one wants to be a snitch. Most of them are privately educated. Most of them went through Oxbridge, and they know that ruining someone's career is simply not done. No matter what fuck up they have done, it would be bad form. But it's okay for these rich, privileged, privately educated fuckwits to ruin other people's careers, the careers of me or you. Our careers are, you know, they don't give a fuck. They'll say, oh, we'll get another job. Go work in Starbucks. Why don't they say that to this guy? I'll tell you why they don't say this to this guy. Because he's got a cushy job. He's got a nice big house in Hampstead or something. I don't know. He's got a nice little fucking private, civil servant's pension. You know, he's laughing. He's laughing all the way to the bank. And his mates aren't going to grass him up. His mates aren't going to chuck him out. We see this time and time and time again. Yuri, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The rich treat the law like champagne. They only order it when they need it. Very good point, Yuri. I really like that. That is well put. So, you know, imagine you're a junior Home Office officer and you're on 30k and you complain about the CEO or the COO being a creep. And the system takes 18 months to do nothing, and nothing happens, right? But you make one mistake on a visa application, and that's it. They sack you within a week. I mean, you know, accountability only goes downwards. It's only us. It's us that are held accountable. Every time we do something even mildly wrong, we get fined. We get punished. We get our entire lives derailed. If we have a mental health problem, we do not get the help we need. If they have a mental health problem, oh, they're checked into the finest rehab centers in the universe. You know, it's like, because they can afford it. Are you feeling scared because you're online and people are, you know, you're a woman and people are giving you like death threats? Can you afford private security to stand outside your house? No, you cannot. Can the rich? Yeah, they can afford that. They can afford to live in a private gated estate so they can go online and say whatever the fuck they like with absolute impunity because they know nothing's going to ever happen to them. They can sleep soundly in their beds. We can't. They're going to pay for a copper to stand outside a YouTuber's house because they've said something online that's upset the gam-gams or the Nazis, the fash. You know, it's not going to happen. And then, oh my God, let's talk about the military. We're going to talk about the military. We're going to talk about the NHS. We're going to talk about the police. Oh my God. The levels of failings that don't go punished, all right? The failings are one problem. But then the fact they don't go punished is another. Chrissy, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The law only applies to ordinary people, not the wealthy and powerful who use the law to keep us underlings in our designated place under the thumb. You're absolutely right, Chris. You are absolutely right. And it is, when we talk about the incompetent side of this, that's one thing. That is like, as I was saying the other day, the biggest lie that you believe when you're a child is that the adults know what they're doing. And as you grow up, it becomes abundantly clear that the adults have no idea whatsoever of what they are doing. No idea at all. It's quite embarrassing how so many people in major public roles, public office, or in heading up the CEOs of business and all this, they haven't got a clue, and they are making it up as they go along. Now that's a video for another day. I'm not particularly talking about incompetence today. What I want to talk about is consequences, and the lack of consequences for these rugger buggers from the private school elite, the Oxbridge elite, the people running our country, getting away with fucking murder, So let's talk about Brize Norton here. So Palestine Action activists drove scooters into one of the UK's most sensitive RAF bases, and they spray painted Voyager aircraft, which cost millions of pounds in damage as they spray painted into the engine. So the engines have got to be taken apart and cleaned, put back together again. It's a big fucking faff. I understand why the government's pissed with Palestine Action. I don't understand why they're going around arresting dozens of protesters yesterday who were protesting against what the Israelis are doing in Gaza, which is absolutely abhorrent. And using this, the fact that they've prescribed Palestine Action as a terrorist group to say, well, you're supporting them, because one of the little things in the Terrorism Act, isn't it? It's supporting the aims of terrorists. So let me get this straight. So if you support a united Ireland, you're a terrorist because that was one of the IRA's aims. What? I mean, no. It doesn't. I shouldn't work like that. But anyway, I'm less arsed about these dickheads getting into RAF Brize Norton on scooters. I'm more concerned about the dickheads who let them in. This is one of our most sensitive RAF sites. We are currently fighting a proxy war against the Russian Federation. And I ask you now, why was no one court-martialed? Why was no one taken to task? Was there a security review? Did counter-terrorism police investigation? Yeah, we did that. But did any base commander or MOD official face consequences? Not that we know of. The Ministry of Defence will probably spend millions on new barriers and CCTV, but no actual human will be held to account for fucking up so badly that they let a couple of yahoos turn up on their base in a fucking scooter. What if they had been terrorists? What if they had been Russian operatives? And instead of having the spray can full of spray paint, how about it's a can full of Novichok? Hey? Did you think about that? The RAF is packed with the same old boarding school set. The senior officers all know each other from Sandhurst, from Eton, Wellington College, Winchester, Harrow, rugby. They're not going to end someone else's career on embarrassment. They used to. They used to be a lot more willing to stand up against each other. But do you know what they were always willing to do? The officer class. Do you know what they were always willing to do? To fucking shoot the working class Tommies who were shitting bricks about having to go over the top in World War One. They were more than happy to do that, weren't they? They had to be held to account. The Tommies going over the fucking, no man's land, minefields, barbed wire, mud, running towards the machine guns. And if they dared turn back and run towards our trenches because, I don't know, they were fucking injured or freaking out, they were shot by our forces. They were told to shoot anyone trying to come back. They were happy to give consequences to those people for their fuck-ups. But the officer class? Maybe in World War II, but not anymore, mate. Not anymore. I've heard stories about situations in foreign countries, let's say, where officers have fucked up so badly, men have died. and yet they've suffered no consequence. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but I'm assured that it does happen. Your mileage may vary. In the army, like, you know, this same sort of aristocratic immunity just applies. You know, failing upwards is like a British tradition, and we've got to stop it. We've got to stop it, because this isn't the way it should be. I do believe in a meritocracy. I want a meritocracy, and I think it starts with holding these neo-aristocrats accountable when they fuck up. And look, you know, we're going to talk about the Afghan dossier in a moment, and this is a bigger version of this. But if any heads do roll in these situations, have you always noticed that it's like the underlings? It's like the people who are manning the boom gate or personing the boom gate going into the base that get into trouble. Not the person who drew up the security protocols of how to stop anyone coming into the base on a fucking scooter. You know, a teenager on a moped can get into an RAF base, and yet the colonel in charge still collects his medals, still got his nice army pension. If this was one of us, we'd be fired. That's it. You know, you'd be let go. They'd be gotten rid of. But in the UK, we just say, we have an inquiry, which takes 7 years. And then at the end of that, we shrug and say, well, lessons will be learned. Let's look at the post office. The woman in charge of the post office, Paula Venables, right? Privately educated, of course. She oversaw the suicide of at least 13 individuals that we know of. There may be more. There probably are more. Under her tenure as head of the post office, knowing there was a faulty program. And she drove people to jail. She drove people to suicide. Has she been put in jail herself? Has she fuck? Should she? Absolutely. But private school mafia, you know, she's a priest now or something, isn't she? She's a vicar. Please forgive me, she says. Sure, God might forgive her. I won't. Tim, thank you very much for the £2 super chat. Isn't it the army, the MPGS that guards Brize? I don't know. Let's say the military then. Let's say the military. I don't know why the army are the military police of the army are guarding an RAF base, but I don't know the structures in the army enough. But whoever it was, like whoever drew up the plans for the security of that base, whether they were in the RAF, whether they're in the army or the navy, I don't care. The point is, they were caught with their pants down, and they should be punished accordingly. And apparently they're not. I mean, I might be wrong. There might be some internal audit going on, and they might get into loads of trouble. But I doubt it. Come on. Like, seriously. I know this is the argument from incredulity, but I've got too many examples for you. Okay, let's go on to the Afghan data leak. So an unencrypted spreadsheet with 19,000 Afghan names on it, and at least 100 people working for the secret services in the UK. People who literally risked their lives for British forces. They got emailed in a fucking Excel spreadsheet to someone outside the team, leaked into the public domain. They effectively gave an Excel spreadsheet with the names of everyone who'd helped the British out and their families and their address and where to get them, where to find them. And they mailed it out. Like, how can anyone be that incompetent? Like, but it's not just the person who did it. It's not just the person who pressed the send button and then went, oop. It's the structure. How could that document exist? Why would all that information be held together in one document? One of the first things that people know who work in security is you have discrete packets of information that are not connected to each other in any way. So if one of those packets of information leaks into the public realm, you're dealing with maybe a few hundred names, not 19,000. That spreadsheet should not have existed. And those smaller packets of information, let's say everyone whose name begins with the first letter of the Arabic alphabet, that information should have been encrypted using a bespoke program that is only available, and the only people who can use and access this program and put it on their computers are people working at the higher levels of military intelligence or the Home Office or whoever it is. That's who should. I mean, this is just keeping secrets 101. And yet they put all this information together. Who drew up that structure? Who said this was all right? Which higher up was responsible? We don't know. We don't know. And when government ministers, this government, not the government that was in charge when this fuck up happened, but this government now have asked, our head's gonna roll. They changed the fucking subject. They changed the subject. I've seen it. I've seen interviews on TV. They're like, oh, our head's gonna roll for this. Oh, well, we're looking into it. And this happened 2 years ago, right? And so I presume the person who did it is still in the role. An extra 2 years of pay. This may have cost the British taxpayer up to 7 billion with a B pounds. 7 billion pounds. And who are the aristocracy blaming? The Nigel Farages of this world, the multi-millionaires that run everything, the ones working for the filthy slime companies. Who do they blame? Oh, they blame the Afghans and say, oh, the Afghans are coming over here and now they're costing us too much money. And no, it was our fuck up. And we had to do the right thing. And I'm sorry, but the super injunction, looking at it in its whole, good thing, good. I'm glad they put the super injunction in. The government didn't want a super injunction, but the judge said, no, we've got to not let anyone know that this has fucking happened. And then they spent billions getting people out of Afghanistan in unmarked planes to get them the fuck out of there before the Taliban located them and murdered them. And their families. And their children. Do you understand the seriousness of this? And yet the upper class elite, like Farage and Tice, they're going, oh, well, these Afghans, why are they paying for these Afghans? Why are we paying for our fuck up? Well, because it was our fuck up, mate. Paula Thomas, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Having been on a sensitive RAF site in the 1980s, I can tell you that the internal security on those sites is appalling. This was the only site I went to that didn't have visitors' badges. Oh my God. I mean, this is it. We guard our Amazon warehouses more. We guard them better than we guard our sensitive military bases. Do you think the Russians aren't seeing this? Because they absolutely are. I'm going to have to go and get the door. So what I'm going to do... oh, no. It's okay. I don't need to do that. Cat's on it. She's on it. I didn't think she'd hear the knock, but she did. Footum Stuck, given the speed and urgency of the Afghan evacuation, did they even have time to build a proper solution to it? Well, I mean, I think they did well getting as many people out as they did, to be honest with you, given what happened. But what happened should never, ever have happened. It shouldn't have happened. Scott said, I remember in the 80s, the RAF did a survey of bases and found 90% were undefendable. Yeah. And I mean, the government and the RAF, they should be thanking the Palestine Action for bringing this to their attention. The lack security on our RAF bases, don't you think? I think they should be given fucking medals, not told they're terrorists. Tim Ballum, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. You never use a custom encryption program because they are inherently insecure. As insecure as a completely unencrypted sending out to an unencrypted Excel file. Come on. Yeah, they're a little bit more secure, a little bit more difficult to crack. I mean, and again, there should have been packets of information that were separate to each other. Like, why put it all together in one big spreadsheet? I just can't get my head around it. Do you remember in the early days of COVID when they ran out of space on the Excel spreadsheet? Because Excel spreadsheets used to only go up to 65,000 rows. And they were using an old version of Excel to log the people who had COVID. And it got to the 65,000 mark, and they were like, "Oh shit, we can't add any more." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? This is the higher echelons of government." Come on, Graham. That's like thanking someone for backing into your car because it's a crap car. Lol. I've got a funny story about that. My back in the 70s. No, it's the 80s. Back in the 80s, I was a kid at the time. My dad had a mate called Rocky, and he was a bit mad. We liked him, and he was into his cars. You know, he was a car mechanic. And one day, he was backing out of a driveway or something, and he hit a bloody lamppost and like dinged the back of his car like that. And the insurance company didn't want to give him the money to fix his car because obviously it was his fault. So he decided to do that thing where you drive along Queen's Drive really slowly and get someone else to come right behind you, right? And then he was like looking in his rear view mirror, and he's going, right, I'm going to slam on, and this person behind me is going to hit me, right? And then I'll be able to sort out, you know, get off their insurance to sort out the back of my car, which is already dinged. And, you know, dangerous thing to do. I do not recommend it. Anyway, he's driving down the road. He's looking in his rear view mirror, and there's some car like right behind him. This is the 80s, so it was probably a BM. So there's a BMW right up his chuff. And he's looking, and he's like, right. And he's about to slam on the brakes. And he fucking goes straight into the back of a double-decker bus because he wasn't looking at the road. No one was injured. No one was injured. It was a low-speed collision, but what a tit. So there you go. There's some karma for you for Sunday morning. Don't try and F with karma, because karma will F with you. Anyway, the Afghan data leak. Let's talk about this, right? So, the government hid this. Well, the government didn't hide it. It was the High Court judge. It was the judge with a super induction. And thousands were relocated. Enormous cost, and thousands have been left at risk. No one even knows that the Taliban got the list or used the list or anything. But the official who leaked it isn't named, not prosecuted. Apparently they've moved on, according to what I can dig up. I don't know. I just don't know. MPs were kept in the dark. No one at the MOD or the cabinet officers resigned. You know, you're part of the civil service club, you're shielded. It's as simple as that. Whistleblowers or junior staff would be crucified. But the top brass, they quietly disappear off into consultancy jobs. I don't care. And they keep their pensions. They keep their gold-plated civil service pensions. You know, we don't hang our own out to dry. But here's the system we've got in the UK. And I've discussed this before, but I will mention it again. In the US, if you're a whistleblower and there's a class action lawsuit as a result of what you're blowing the whistle on, let's say it's a water company polluting a river, if the people who live on that river sue that water company for millions... Oh, actually, no, water companies in America, it's nationalized, isn't it? Let's say the paper company, right? So the paper mill puts loads of bleach into the water, and it fucks people in the town down the river. So there's a massive lawsuit, and $500 million is doled out to the people of this town, right? The whistleblowers will get a cut of that. There's a good system. So there's an incentive to whistleblow because you might be set for life. Whereas in the UK, you blow the whistle, you get nothing. You just never work in that sector again. It derails your whole career. Could you imagine whistleblowing on GlaxoSmithKline, even fucking hell. They change the names all the time. GlaxoSmithKline or AstraZeneca. Could you imagine blowing the whistle on them as a junior researcher? And then you've spent years training to be a bioengineer, biochemist, and that's all gone. You've got to get a job in Starbucks. And that's the protection of whistleblowers is something that I wish this government would sort of prioritise, because it's really, really important. But also, this just goes to show that once you get to a certain level, there's no getting rid of you. You probably know someone or have heard of someone in a job or business or whatever who was really crap and got promoted just because they wanted to get them out of that particular department because they were pissing everyone else off. Then they piss someone else off at the other department that they're put in, and then they're promoted again out of the department, and they go piss somebody else off. Shit floats. And then we've got the NHS management, the doctors. Talk about untouchable elites. Wes Streeting has promised failing NHS managers will finally be sacked. Finally. But will they? We're going to have league tables now. But is this going to lead to actual disciplinary measures? Or is it just going to be a reshuffling of people around a chessboard. Doctors are almost impossible to strike off the medical register, even after catastrophic failures. The GMC prioritizes rehabilitation over accountability. And, it might be an urban legend, but as far as I am aware, Dr. Shipman, the butcher of Hyde, the guy who murdered hundreds of old ladies in Hyde, he was still signing when he was waiting for trial, awaiting trial for all these murders, and he was being held in custody. He was still signing off on repeat prescriptions for his patients because he hadn't been struck off the register. I think even after he had been found guilty of mass murder, for a little while there, he was still on the medical register. He was still legally qualified to sign repeat prescriptions, if you can believe that. Just what? Frontline nurses, though? Junior doctors? Porters? Constantly scrutinised. Especially if they're foreign. Especially if they come from another country. But the people at the top, Teflon. And, many NHS trust execs are career managers from the same elite networks. They fail in one trust and then they pop up, somewhere else as an interim CEO. Even the GMC is a closed shop run by doctors for doctors. Again, no. If you fuck up, you don't necessarily have to take responsibility. But then let's look at fucking Ofwat, which is they're getting rid of it now because it's so shit. Because it was run by the old schoolmates of the people who ran the fucking water companies. Let's look at Ofsted. Ofsted, that doesn't have to, at the moment, inspect private schools. Private schools don't want to be inspected by Ofsted. They don't need to be inspected by Ofsted. Who's in charge of Ofsted? Someone from a private school. Great. Good. I like that. Yeah, good system. Yeah. And Ofsted, the way that Ofsted conducts itself has led to the suicide of at least one head teacher in a state school, not in a private school, a state school. And what do? They go, well, never mind. And the person in charge continues on their career. I mean, look at Dido Harding. Dido Harding failed at everything she did in her life. And then she was given 37 billion with a B, to develop an NHS app that failed. Do you remember that? That was fun, wasn't it? She went to private school. Do you see the connection? I hope you don't watch these shows going, Graham is always grasping at straws about this private school network that runs everything. But honestly, it's pretty fucking obvious. I couldn't even do that thing on my wall with, the strings the strings on the tacks. Because there'll be too many of them. There'll be at least 1,270 pictures on that wall. There's just too many to go through. And they're not all incompetent. They're not all shit at what they do. But then we look at movies that are made by the rich elite, for the rich elite, starring people who are members of the rich elite, privately educated elite, and they're shite. And they're spending all this money that we give them through our lottery playing. So, the working class people who buy lottery tickets every week in the hope that they might win the lottery once in their lifetime. Those people are just hung out to dry when they go to they go to the cinema to go and watch a British movie that their lottery money has paid for, and it's all about some posh people who just cry themselves to death. Most working class people I know they're not interested in that type of movie. Can I not watch a movie where a posh person cries themselves to death? Okay, we'll make a movie where a working class person cries himself to death. How about we don't do that? How about we do something a bit fantastical, some amazing story that fills up the silver screen, but it's like the heroes are working class people. They don't necessarily live in a massive fucking house like Kevin from Home Alone. Let's have some adventures that normal people go on. How about that? Instead of it being, hey, here's an adventure that someone who lives in a big fucking maisonette in Notting Hill that goes on. Okay. Again. But yeah, I guess when we talk about doctors, when we talk about the upper echelons of the civil service, politicians who seem to just keep failing upwards. Their first instinct is to protect the club. You know, they don't want to. They don't want to set a precedent. None of these people want to set a precedent for like proper discipline, proper consequences for people's actions, because one day it might be them. That's it. That's the reason they're so cowardly on stuff like this. And a nurse can lose their job because of one misfiled form, whereas a consultant can kill a child, get a warning, and carry on. I mean, come on. Come on. Let's talk about HS2, or water company. Water companies pumping raw sewage into rivers for over a decade. Execs are pocketing £112 million bonuses. Only now are bonuses being banned, but what they've done is they've doubled their salaries. They've just doubled their salaries. That's what they've all done. HS2 collapsed after billions wasted, but no execs are being prosecuted for fraud or negligence. You know, you steal some nappies from the co-op and the police come and arrest you. They're stealing some nappies from the fucking co-op. These people steal billions with a B from the taxpayer. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Look at all the COVID loans, the COVID VIP lanes. Has anything happened? No. They might use Michelle Mone as a sacrificial lamb. I'd be really interested in that if that happens. You know why? Michelle Mone is possibly the only one of those grubby little motherfuckers who stole money from the taxpayer to buy PPE that didn't work, that didn't go to private school. Do you think there's a connection there? Because I fucking do. I mean, maybe I'm going mad. Maybe I'm seeing stuff that isn't there. But it just seems a little bit uncanny for all these coincidences. All these many, many, many coincidences. I feel like I'm in the movie Hot Fuzz with Simon Pegg, privately educated, of course. Watching the top of the church fall on Adam Buxton's head. Adam Buxton, privately educated, of course. I love these guys, but and seeing there's something going on in the village. You know why are all these people dying in mysterious ways? You know, there must be a connection, and everyone in the police force, and you know, you've got what's her name? Olivia Colman in the police, privately educated, of course, in the police station, along with the guy from Bill Bailey. You know, he's in the police. They're privately educated, of course. In fact, nearly everyone in that film is privately. But that's nothing new. If you watch any British film, pretty much everyone on screen will have gone to private school. That's another story. But I feel like I'm in that movie and I'm the police officer, Nicholas Angel, and I'm looking at all these things and I'm going, this can't be a coincidence. And people are like, oh, people just die. You know, people just die. There's nothing going on here. There's no conspiracy. People just die. And I'm like, that's how I feel now. I'm feeling like everyone's looking at me going, no, Graham, don't be silly. They're not all linked by some kind of, I don't know, shadowy private school old boy network that, you know, protects them from any kind of consequences for the shit that they pull. But I think there is. I think there is. And I think we've been gaslit. I think we've been gaslit up the kazoo. And this is it. This is the big two-tier Britain that we are looking at. The likes of Farage face no consequences whatsoever. I'm pretty sure that if I was in a plane crash and then 2 years later, the pilot of that plane, after having a huge beef with me for whatever, took his own life, I'll be pilloried for that. I think I would be. Not that I'm famous enough to be pilloried, but if I was. Farage just continues on like nothing happened. And yeah, the train companies, I mean, for fuck's sake, they fail constantly. Services collapse, but the bosses are still collecting rises and performance bonuses. You know, you talk about train lines that had like 74% punctuality. Like 1 in 4 trains was late. 1 in 4 trains just didn't fucking show up. And they're like, oh, here you go, have another bonus. I know that's coming under national control now, but I don't think the people who oversaw the complete ineptitude for all those years, none of them are going to face consequences. They're just going to blob off to somewhere else, some other company, and take it over. There's a really good Stephen Polyakov play. Stephen Polyakov, fantastic writer, fantastic screenwriter, privately educated, of course. And he did a film with Damian Lewis, privately educated, of course, in which it was called Friends and Crocodiles. And it was very much about these, like a family company that goes for years and then suddenly gets taken over by sort of almost faceless CEOs who decide to do something new and modern and crazy with the company. And they end up taking this family-run company that's been really successful for years. Let's call it ICI. Let's call it Marconi. Yeah, should we call it Woolworths? What name do you want to give it? CNA? Should we call it CNA? Should we call it, I don't know, Poundlands? I don't know, something that's been run for for a long time. And I don't know what happened in those particular cases, but it's very telling that this old CEO gets put in. And they're like, yes, we've got to modernize the business. We've got to grab hold of the dot-com bubble before it bursts. And they've absolutely fucked it up. Marconi is a good example of this. I think Marconi used to own all the cables. Someone in the chat will know more about this than me. They used to own all the cables. And they went, in the future, we won't need cables. And so they sold them all off. And they were invested in digital media or something. I don't know. It was just... The best example of a company going tits up for no reason is Kodak. I mean, Kodak blows my mind. The story of Kodak is just one for the ages. In the 1980s, it was one of the biggest companies in the world. I think it was second only to Coca-Cola in the 1980s in terms of its reach, in terms of its size. It was the biggest silver importer into America because they had to make silver nitrate, didn't they, to process the films and to make the films. And one of their researchers invented the digital CCD, which is integral into any kind of digital. You're seeing this through a digital CCD, and they developed it, and they decided not to make digital cameras because they wanted to keep hold of the profitable film processing bit, because it was so profitable to make film, make people, then have to take the film to Max Spielman, have to sit there for a week waiting for it to be processed, the cost of £5.99, and they finally get their films back and it's all out of focus and blurry and shit because, those cameras weren't great. And they didn't modernize, and they sat on patents. They had patents on certain pigments and dyes for colors in their printers that no one else could use. Epson couldn't use them. Hewlett Packard couldn't use them. Every single camera on every single mobile phone, smartphone should be a Kodak camera, but it's not, because Kodak went tits up because incompetent people took over. And I'm pretty sure that they probably face no consequences for that. They fucked a business that was, 100 years old, and they fucked it over, and then they just left and got another job in some other company. It's not just Britain that does this. Look at Trump in America. He's failed upwards all his life. He's been bankrupted 6 times, and society has bailed him out. If he lived in Dubai, he would have been in jail 6 times over for going bankrupt. No bankruptcy protection in Dubai. There's a chat. Don Hillsborough, 25 years on, no accountability. Yeah, 35 years on. 36 years on, actually, donkey. Yeah. Fucking David Duckenfield ended up being chief of police for Merseyside, of all places. No one faced consequences. The press didn't face consequences. The Sun newspaper didn't get consequences. Calvin McKenzie, privately educated, of course, didn't face any consequences for printing lies on the front cover of his newspaper. He just went to another newspaper. He's gone on with his life. Unlike the people who lost their family members in April 1989, who were stopped from getting on with their life because everyone said, no, nothing to see here. No mistakes were made. And then finally, in 2016, one of the bright points of 2016, we finally got a record of 97 unlawful deaths. And did anyone face any consequences for it? Nope. Look, Britain's ruling class, the civil service mandarins, the generals, the NHS staff, CEOs, judges, MPs, so many of them are in the upper echelons, the elite of these organizations are stitched together by private school and Oxbridge networks. And we need to expose this. We need to show this to people because they don't understand how deep it goes. You know, these people who are obsessed with conspiracies and you know, I'm like, here you go. Here's a list of over 1,250 people in the public eye who all went to private school. Do you not see the connection? And they're like, no, nothing to see here. You know, this is we have a revolving door of CEOs, ministers, regulators. They all went to the same schools. They all share the same social clubs. They're not going to torch each other's reputations because it might ruin their future non-executive roles or whatever they're planning for their career future. And they're not going to derail anyone else's career because it might derail their career, which is why we need a wholesale rethink of how we bring accountability to these people. And I think that we need to start looking into, you know, tribunals that are made up of normal people. People like you and me who aren't going to sit on that tribunal. You know, get paid. You sit on a tribunal, you do tribunal service, and you actually get fucking paid for it for a couple of weeks, right? And you are in a position where you're given all the evidence, you've seen how this motherfucker's fucked up, and you and the other people on the tribunal have to come up with a decision on, you know, whether they fucked up, how badly they fucked up, and what the punishment should be. Because at the moment, the person deciding what the punishment should be, if they're a high court judge, they went to private school with the person in the dock. Do you see the problem? Do you see the conflict of interest? People are not going to risk the future derailing of their career if they fuck up. Because everyone fucks up. At some point in everyone's life, you will fuck up. You will fuck up many times. It is the one, you know, I guess it's death, taxes, and the fact that you'll fuck up at some point. That's what we need. We need a wholesale rethink about accountability for the elites. How can we have a system in which someone like Nigel Farage, who has cost every single family, every single hard-working family in this country £1,500 a year, at least, how is he still allowed to not just be in public life? He should have been shunned a long time ago. How can he still be the leader of a political party? If Zach Polanski wins his leadership contest for the Greens, it will mean the leaders of Labour, the Tories, the Greens, the Lib Dems, and Refuck, all five parties, all five English parties, if you want to call them that, because I'm going to exclude the SNP and Plaid Cymru from this. All of them went to private school. Now, what hope does that leave for the rest of us? And yeah, I know that Starmer's school became private while he was there, so slightly different. But seriously, these kids are taught at their schools, only you can fix this. I alone can fix this. And they're taught that the power that they crave is a natural extension of the privilege that they've already given. And that's what we face in this country. More than anything else, a privilege gap. And we need to identify this privilege gap, and we need to bring the kids who are growing up, who are falling under the wing of Refuck because they think the Refuck are their friends. We need to prove to them there is a privilege gap, and the Refuck fuckers are absolutely taking the piss. And to have it here in Durham, they've put a privately educated young woman in early 20s, they've put her in charge of child services. Well, not really in charge, because obviously there's a full-time staff for the council, but she's the representative for council for child services on the council. This is a woman who went to private school. What the fuck does she know about kids in care? What the fuck does she know about troubled youth? What the fuck does she know? So yeah, just absolutely mind-blowing. You know, I guess from the age of 8 till 18, these private school mafia types are taught, don't grass, don't embarrass the institution. Protect your mates. This is why so few stories about child abuse in these institutions actually get out. because they don't want to grasp. They don't want to say anything. They don't want to give their school a bad name. Do you think there has been a conversation at least once where a parent has gone into Ampleforth, let's say, and said, I know what this particular teacher did because I was here as a pupil 20 years ago, but now I want my child to go to this school and you're going to give me a massive discount or I'm going to go to the papers. Do you think that's happened? I think that's probably happened. Maybe not in Ampleforth, but maybe in another school. So the sex scandal, it's been covered up. No one knows about it. I'm pretty sure it's happened. At least once. But here's the horrible thing. Then that parent has allowed their child to forced that child to go to that school where they know children are abused. No Ofsted inspections. The teachers do not need to have a qualification. They don't need a PGCE to teach at a private school. The US, the UK is less a meritocracy. It's more of a boarding school where the prefects never grew up and kept the same playground rules. Don't snitch. Don't upset the old boys. And above all, cover for the team. And they love to cover for the team. It's all a lot of them do. And from the Home Office to the RAF to NHS to Thames Water, there's zero accountability at the top, and I am sick of it. This pattern isn't accidental. It's woven into the social fabric of the country in which we live. Privilege, private education, old school networks. If we want a country where incompetence actually has consequences, we need to break the culture of protection that starts in these, effectively our Ivy League prep schools, and ends in Whitehall, the MOD, corporate boardrooms. Until then, these incompetent motherfuckers will keep failing, and they'll keep failing upwards, and their failures are going to just keep costing us, normal people struggling to, just keep our heads above water. They're going to keep us down, and they're going to, cost us so much more money as we go forward. And it means that life now in the UK is pretty fucking miserable for a lot of people because we can't afford mortgages. We can't afford the rent. Our parents' generation were paying like 9% in mortgages. Our generation's paying like 40% in fucking rent of our pay packet. Unbelievable. So yeah. Kate Smith, thanks very much for commenting. It's normal for folks in banking, financial industry to spend time in civil service or government or secondment and then advise the client how to use loopholes that they've created. Yeah, or loopholes created. Chris C says, ban private schools. Couldn't agree more, mate. Couldn't agree more. I'd make them constitutionally illegal. Make it fair across the board for every child to succeed because of their own talents and skills, not because their parents have bought them connections. Yeah. I don't believe that, like, if we did shut down all the private schools tomorrow, these networks would necessarily go away, but they would be diminished. And there's a couple of things, just like practicalities here. One is, I think it's very, very practical for people who are come from very wealthy backgrounds to hang out with people from the other side of town, to fall in love with someone who's working class. I think that makes social mobility more likely. To be friends with someone who's working class be a lot easier for a working class kid who knows someone who's, daddy owns a mansion, to ask for a loan, a personal loan for 50 grand to get their company on its feet, to get their dream going. At the moment, the amount that you can take to start the amount of loan that you can take to start a new business is 20 grand. And that's got to be paid back at 6% interest by you. Even if the business doesn't take off, even if it's a massive failure, even if you end up losing money, you are still on the hook for that 20 grand because it's on you. That's the government-backed startup loan scheme, the government-backed one. And if someone can't pay it and declares themselves bankrupt and that then can't be a company director for X many years, If that happens, who picks up the tab for that loan? The taxpayer, me and you. The system at the moment is set up to make us fail. It is absolutely set up to make us fail. And we can't make one mistake. We make a single mistake, we make one fuck up, and we are fucked. I mean, it even comes down to, like, think about artists, think about, like, musicians, think about filmmakers who aren't rich enough to afford a good showbiz lawyer when they're handed their first contract. This happened to me. I was handed a contract by Lonely Planet, and it was fucking awful. I might put it online at some point so you can all marvel at how fucking awful it was. I got paid peanuts. I got paid less than minimum wage for a year's work every single day, filming myself in 133 countries and 6 territories without any backup, without any, what's it called, like a Range Rover behind me, following me along with a camera crew on or anything like that. I was paid less than minimum wage and I got no expenses. And the deal was I was supposed to get 25% of the net profit. The net profit, fucking hell. Not the gross profit then, Graham. And basically it's never made a profit. My TV show never made a profit, according to Lonely Planet. Thanks for that, guys. So, yeah. I'm sure somebody profited from it. I'm pretty sure when I was watching it on the telly in Dubai, when I was watching it on the telly in India and Nepal and China and Hong Kong, I was watching it on the TV in Indonesia and Australia and New Zealand. I was watching it on the TV in America. I'm pretty sure that there were adverts. So I'm sure someone paid some money. But, could be wrong. It didn't cost them much to make, I'll tell you that now. Fucking hell. It's getting samey blaming the rich. There's less rich than all of us, we or they. You are helping the rich, the evil, not you per se, but definitely not me. I don't really understand Trip. I mean, you can say to me that it's getting samey blaming the rich, but it is their fault that things have gone the way they have because of greed, because people who are already rich wanting more. They're wanting a bigger yacht. They've already got a yacht. They want a bigger one. I'm like, really? Do you really need a bigger yacht? Do you need 2 yachts? You need one for each foot? Like, what the... And since 1979, when Thatcher got in the UK, in 1980, when Reagan got in the US, or 1981, when he actually took office, there has been this concerted effort by the rich elites to gather up all the money for themselves and then say, oh, there'll be a trickle-down process. Well, the money will trickle down, which it never does. Tim Ballon, thank you very much for the 13-month membership of you. You are a superstar, Tim. And thanks for all the lovely super chats over our time, over our years. It's been years, hasn't it, Tim? Over our years together. Thank you very much. Profit shifting, Graham. Are you calling me a profit shifter? What? Yeah. Well, that's what it is, isn't it? They call it Hollywood accounting. Basically, you think you're signing an all right deal, and you gotta go, oh, at least I got a couple of grand out of this. Entertainment industry depends on punters that don't know that the film TV biz is not for profit in it. It's gross points only. Yeah, not profits. None. Yeah. You don't get anything from the net. But, in my defense, I was literally on a fucking cargo ship traveling from the Faroe Islands to Rotterdam while, trying to look over this deal, and I didn't have a lawyer to go, back and forth with them and say this is bullshit. And who protects them? The working class people around them keep their secrets. It's something in return. We need to stand up inside our group also. Yeah, Trip, we do. And I don't see why that starts with not talking about the fact that it's the rich that's causing all the problems in the world right now. And just not the rich, it's the greedy. It's the people nothing is ever enough. These billionaires, how is what you got not enough? The billionaires who pushed through Trump becoming elected in America and then pushed through this big bastard bill, which means they pay less tax on their earnings over X amount, And I think something's going to give. I really do think something's going to give. But if Labour, and also just the people, progressives on the left, whether that's the same thing or not is up for another debate. But if people on the left want to get people on side, right? Here's a little tip. Don't scream at them. Don't call them gobshites. I know I do, but this is not something we should do, right? I want to call the people that they are voting for gobshites. Okay? they're the fuckers. They're the people not to trust. But when it comes to the people actually voting for this, especially young people voting for it, they may not know all this. It might seem obvious to us now. We've been talking about it for many years, and since Brexit and everything, but it might not be obvious to them that the wealthy are absolutely taking the piss, and they're being used by the wealthy to destroy their own communities, to wind down the hospitals, the libraries, the schools, the infrastructure in the area in which they live. Tim, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. They could have made millions out of your program, but spent it all on services from a company in Panama. Yeah, possibly. The thing is, though, the production company normally doesn't make much money out of a TV show. I found this out afterwards, because what happens is they get given a budget by the company, by the broadcaster. They get given they get given the money to make the show from the broadcaster, and then they make the show. So if they're given $500,000 to make the show, they'll spend $500,000 making the show. Or they might give me, I don't know, $10,000 and then spend the rest on buying a new house or something. I don't know. But in that case, like, that the production company doesn't really make anything after that. Doesn't make any much in residuals. It's the broadcaster that makes the money in residuals, because they're paid for the commission of a TV show. It always used to annoy me back in the 90s that whenever a music video was shown on MTV, so the publishing company got a cut, right? The musicians got a cut. The session musicians on the recording got a cut. So you could turn up at the end of an Oasis track and go ting on a triangle, and you'll get a cut for the session musician cut of the profits from the performance of that song. So you got your publishing rights, you got your performance rights, and they're two separate rights. And then the person who made the video gets nothing. The person that makes the video, that sells the song, that gets all of these plays constantly on heavy rotation, they used to call it, on MTV, got nothing. Got absolutely nothing. No matter how many times it was shown on TV, it's do my fucking head in. That's the maddest fucking thing I could imagine, because the record company commissioned it, so they just pay whoever makes it a few £100 to make this music video, and then they make the video, and that's all they get. They just get a few £100. Meanwhile, every time that video is shown, that artist's work, the artist who made the music video, nothing. The same thing happens with stuff like Harry Potter. It gets filmed in the UK with UK actors, a UK crew, UK directors sometimes. And the money goes to Warner Brothers. Like, maybe the actors get residuals, the main actors, but if you were the best boy on that, on 8 Harry Potter movies, you're not going to get any money for it these days, I don't think. You're not going to get any royalties. It goes to Warner Brothers in the US for our story. Cocaine does not by itself. That's very true, Don said that. Might have been held had he not pulled out at the last minute. Ooh, what? True. I didn't mean you, Graham. I meant you, generally everyone reading. Oh, right, yeah. I mean, look, I know it sounds a little bit sort of childish in a way, just going, we're just going to blame the rich. It's all the rich's fault. The rich. But it really is. It really fucking is. Because they've set up society. They've arranged society around their wants and needs, and not the wants and needs of the wider society in which the rest of us live. And the other thing that I wanted to say earlier, although I lost my train of thought, when I was talking about it would be good for a kid from a working class background to have mates who are from the upper class, It just would be good to have that mix, They like hanging out with each other. And then, there's a chance that you could get something out of it at the end of the day, like what the rich do. The rich get a lot out of their networks. They hang out with other rich people. If they need someone to, the boiler goes and they need £2,000 to fix it, like they know that the rich know someone. If they don't have that liquid money to hand, they know someone they can give a call to. I don't, you don't, that's what we need. We need more mixing of the classes in class, as in school. But also, there's this. I had a friend, I've told this story before, but I had a friend who works on the PTA for a school in Liverpool, and they spent ages, like putting together bring and buy sales and quiz nights and all these ways, bake sales and things to raise a little bit of money for the school. I think they raised 10 grand in the end, like over a year, which was amazing. Absolutely amazing. They raised 10 grand. Fucking awesome, But all I could think is like, if there was just one millionaire, this is a state school. If there was one millionaire whose kid went to that school, or a billionaire, imagine a billionaire's kid went to that school. And the PTA said to them, listen, we could do with this because we want to buy, some new gym equipment or whatever. And they just go, okay, I'll write a fucking check. Here's the mad thing as well. If that rich person wrote a check to a private school that their child goes to for some new basketball equipment, because those private schools are apparently charities, which I think needs to stop, right? But they are charities. They're registered with what's it called? Charity tax aid or whatever the fuck they call it. That charitable donation will be topped up by us, by the taxpayer. That doesn't happen in a state school. You give money to a state school, it's not a charity. Here you go, here's some money to buy some gym equipment. Oh, cheers, thanks. That doesn't get topped up by us, but when it's a private school, it does. Make it make sense. Come on, make that make sense. It sounds evil to me. Just sounds evil. Just catching up. What? It's catching. Sorry, Scott, it's catching. Headline on magazine in Dr. Lexus' office in the movie Idiocracy. Shit's fucked up. Yeah, it is. It is, absolutely. Power to the People with Graham Price says the orchestra that played A Day in the Life by the Beatles were paid more than the Beatles made themselves. It was one of the reasons they split up. They had a terrible deal. I thought by the end of it, they had a pretty good deal when it was Apple, because Apple was theirs, wasn't it? A Day in the Life. What a song. What a song. I think that's the best song of the 20th century. For my money, I don't think you're going to beat it. I don't think you're going to beat it. And plus, it's 2 songs in one. You get 2 songs for the price of 1. It's always good. Tim Ballum, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. There's a place where it happens. It's called a rugby club / pitch. Yeah. It's Sunday morning, Scott. Wayward fingers are allowed. What? Excuse me, Martin Harrow. Naughty. Let's have a look at the papers for a moment. I'm going to wrap up soon because it's Sunday morning. And I should be in church, but I'm not. I'm on top of a train in South America. I'm not. Can't do that anymore. Health and safety, innit? Let's head over to the papers. Data leak scandal. The fear is like hell. We don't deserve the special forces whose names and contact details are exposed by the catastrophic MOD email blunder say they're frightened for their lives as they remain stuck in the Taliban stuck in Afghanistan under the Taliban. There's a picture of them there with their faces blurred out. It's not just low resolution, although it is a bit low resolution. Then we've got the Sunday Times here with Uma Thurman, who is in a TV show at the moment. What's she in? She's just turned up in a TV show, hasn't she? Oh, Dexter. She's in the new series of Dexter, Uma Thurman. On movies, Sunset, Motherhood, and Making It in the 90s. I thought she was great in Pulp Fiction and in Kill Bill. Yeah, she was pretty good. Highgrove's loss of harmony. King's gardeners left over bad pay and stress. The King's residents at Highgrove suffered an exodus of gardeners complaining about the monarch's demands and low staff pay. See? Do you see where the 2-tier comes in? The richest man in Britain, the biggest landowner in Britain, and the people who work for him. Inquiry after SAS identities leaked online. Defence Secretary left furious at new breach days after Afghan super injunction exposed. The Army has launched an investigation after the identities of SAS personnel drawn from one of its most senior regiments were published online. Can you believe this shit? Heads must roll. If heads do not roll, like they didn't roll over the tainted blood fiasco, they didn't roll over Hillsborough, they didn't roll over the post office scandal. How long does it take before we join the dots and say the reason why heads haven't rolled is because of this old boys club? If it makes you feel any better, we can call them the Masons or the Illuminati or something. That makes you feel better about it. But you know what it is. It's the old private school networks. And even when it's someone who didn't go to private school who's, should be taken to task, but isn't, they're still covering for them because they've got to a point where they're like, well, I mean, we could have a sacrificial lamb, but what if the next time it happens, the sacrificial lamb is me? 100 protests in 100 arrests in umbrella protests of Palestine Action. I think this is fucking ridiculous. Peaceful protesters being arrested for fucking standing there. This is just mad to me. It's absolutely mad. There's a story here about Ryanair bag oversized bonus. Ryanair pays bonuses to staff who catch any of its 200 million passengers a year who try to travel with oversized cabin baggage. True story. This is why when you go traveling, there's two things you need. You need your passport and you need your tape measure. Just saying. I'm always ready to go. I've got my, thanks to Ori, I've got my travel microphone. Hello. So cute. I love it. Lynch widow's twin legal threat. The widow of Mike Lynch, the Britain tech billionaire who died when his super yacht sank, is facing dual legal threats that could wipe out his estate and drag her into a multi-million-pound fight with victims' relatives over compensation. Shame it's not a fight to like redistribute his wealth amongst the people, hey? Someone suggested, right? And, your mileage may vary on this, but someone suggested that every year we declare the richest person in the world and they're given a crown and then they're put to death and then we redistribute their wealth amongst the people. How about that? You would have Brewster's millions, but it'd be Brewster's billions because no one would want to be the richest person. It'd be so good. They'd be giving their money away. They wouldn't be able to give it away fast enough. Don't forget, the richest people in the world, just a handful of them, 5 of them put together could end world hunger. And they choose not to. They choose to buy a bigger yacht. Sunday people, leading with Charlie XCX's brat wedding. She's married the lead singer of the 1975, who I have a feeling went to private school. I know Charlie XCX did. Should we look it up? Should we look up the 1975? He looks like he went to private school. I might be completely wrong. He might have gone to a state comprehensive. 1975, filmed pop rock band formed in 2002. What? That is insane. He is the son of Matthew Healy, son of Tim Healy and Denise Welsh, who went to private school. And yes, he was. He was privately educated at Lady Barn House School and King's School, Macclesfield. So there you go. 2 privately educated people getting married. Isn't it nice when 2 privately educated people find love? Oh, look, here's another couple of privately educated people here. Andrew, linked to Epstein card. The Duke of York was asked to write a note for Jeffrey Epstein's 50th. It is claimed. And then we have Jelaine asked Prince and Trump for birthday message. So let's go through the list here. We've got Trump, privately educated, Epstein, privately educated, and Jelaine Maxwell, privately educated in the UK. Nonetheless, I'm going on about this a bit too much. I'm going out my mind here, but it's just everywhere, isn't it? It's just absolutely everywhere. So I'm going to just have a quick look on here. I just want to just have a quick look here. Okay, so just give me one moment. Right, so I'm over to the Observer over here. So let's see what the Observer observes. There's Nigel Slater's summer menu there. See you later, Nigel Slater. The SAS is accused of killing unarmed men and boys on night raid in Afghanistan. This is the story of the silencing operation, deletion of evidence, unheard witnesses, police obstruction, injunctions, delays, and denials. Cover up after cover up. This is a separate story to the SAS names being leaked on the internet. This is another scandal. This is a different scandal of which people in the SAS committed crimes and it was covered up for them. The Sunday Telegraph there, au revoir to the champagne flute. Yeah, because I can afford champagne. I had a bottle of champagne, right? for years. I once won it at a film pitching competition at the Newcastle Film Festival in like 2006 or 2007, something like that. And I had this bottle of champagne, and it sat on my mantelpiece for a couple of years. I don't think you're supposed to leave it for that long, champagne, but it was still all right. But that was my bottle of champagne. And I eventually opened it when Lonely Planet gave me the green light to go ahead and start the Odyssey expedition. It's before they gave me the contract, but they said, yeah, we're going to back you. So I was like, they're going to back me. Let's go. And then finally opened the champagne. It's not something that I get to drink very often unless I get invited to someone else's wedding or something. But yes, apparently champagne flutes are going out of fashion, and that should be front page news for some reason. Epstein links may destroy Trump's reign is the other head over banner story there. Listen, look, I know you think I'm being a Debbie Downer about this, but I don't think it will. Honestly, I don't think it'll make any difference. Even if the records come out and it's actually got footage of him literally sexually assaulting children, his fan base will not accept it. They'll just say, oh, the devil made him do it, or it wasn't him, or it's AI, or it's, fake news. They just dismiss it as fake news. And the thing is, he doesn't need to be re-elected. And he's got enough power, enough sway over the Republican Party. He can do whatever the fuck he likes. And while the Democrats continue to be about as much use as a cock-flavoured lollipop, it's just... I don't see his reign of terror ending prematurely. I really don't. I could be wrong, and I really do hope I'm wrong on this. Middle class face higher water bills. Low income customers could be subscribed by better off households in national scheme. What a twatty way to report this story. This story should be lower income water customers going to be subsidised for their water. That should be the headline. But no, they've got to make it a negative. The middle class are going to face higher water bills. And don't forget, the Telegraph, owned by privately educated people. All the opinion columns, the editors of the Telegraph, all privately educated. And they are separate to us. They're separate to the working class. They're separate to the middle class. I'm middle class, right? They're separate to us. And I wish they would stop conflating this idea that going to private school is a middle class aspiration. It's not. If you can afford to send your kids to private school, you are no longer middle class. You're part of the neo-aristocracy. It's as simple as that. Because there's only 7% of the population that can do that. Okay? The working class and the middle class make up the other 93%. Once you cross that Rubicon, you become part of the neo-aristocracy, effectively, right? Because that's where I want to draw the line. And I know that some people watching this will go, oh, Graham, you're being unfair. I went to private school and I don't see myself as neo-aristocratic. That's fine. You don't have to see yourself as that. But I'm going to see you as that. I'm sorry. I just am. Going to lose some subscribers now. I'm not an aristocrat. I'm on the dole. Yeah, okay, fair enough. Not everyone who goes to private school ends up doing well for themselves. But the people who are running this country into the ground because of their incompetence, nearly all of them went to private school. So you can't have it both ways. But that's where I'm going to draw the line. Because we need to draw it somewhere. And I hate the fact that the likes of the Tory graph want to make it, they want to put a schism between the middle class and the working class. They want to create a gulf between them. And it's why you see people like Dominic Cummings, who's privately educated, talking about, I've got to get away from the elites. Because what they want is for the working classes to look at the middle classes as the elite, as the metropolitan elite. It's the middle classes that want us to stay in the EU, not the working class. It's not a working class thing. Working classes, they want people to leave, which is nonsense. Because in somewhere like Liverpool, we voted overwhelmingly to stay in the EU. One of the biggest percentages of any constituency in the country to stay in the EU, apart from like Gibraltar, was Riverside in Liverpool, which is a working class area of Liverpool. That incorporates Toxteth, which you might have heard of, even if you're not a Scouser, because it's where the Toxteth riots took place. The idea that, this false schism between the working class and the middle class is something that the neo-aristocracy that run the Telegraph like to propagate. And we need to point it out. We need to go, this isn't true. Because we can't have people living in terrace streets around here in old pit communities voting for Nigel Farage, thinking that he's their mate when he's not. He's not their mate. He wouldn't piss on them if they were on fire. So that's what I want to do. I don't know if I'll be very successful in trying to point this out to people, but, I'm trying. Reeves may get windfall from seized bitcoins worth $5 billion. Fuck yeah. Screw you, bitcoins. Pride of Lions. This is the celebrating at the British and Irish Lions. Clearly playing ping pong there. And pupils to be taught that feeling down is not a mental health issue. Children will be taught that worrying and feeling down are not mental health conditions in an attempt to curb spiraling worklessness crisis. That'll help. Anti-Semitic abuse rife in schools, says teachers. That doesn't surprise me, unfortunately. You'll always have bigots, and they've been empowered in recent years by the bigots at the top. Daily Star here. Danny Dyer brands PM non-entity as he calls for working class leaders. TV geezer Danny Dyer branded Starmer a fucking non-entity and claims a terrible leader. He wants ordinary folk in charge instead of poshos like Nigel Garage and Kemi Bad Enoch. Yeah. Isn't this interesting? So here you go. Nigel Garage, they called him there, which is a good name for him. Right. So how about this, right? How much shit did working class lad John Prescott get for having two Jags? He was called Two Jags Prescott in the newspapers. They'll refer to him as Two Jags. How many Jags do you reckon fucking Farage has got? Cunt's got a private jet. Country member, the county council member for the country. Why didn't we call him? Why didn't we call him Nigel Two Jags in the Garage Farage? Why not call him that? But yeah, I'm with Danny Dyer on this. I want more working class people in positions of power. I want more working class people telling stories, telling their stories, making decisions. At least before I go on, at least when they're working class, they'll actually be punished if they fuck up. NHS tourists fleecing our hospitals for 200 million. Fuck off. Foreigners flying in to scam cash-strapped health service despite pledge on crackdown. This is bullshit. This is absolute 100% cast iron, copper-bottomed bullshit. This is bullshittery of the highest order. This is really annoying me that they're allowed to just put this on the front. Health tourists deprived the cash-strapped NHS of a staggering 200 million over the past 5 years. Well, most of that was during when the Tories were in charge, but there you go. And then we've got this story here about someone in the royal family. I assume they're a duchess. You're only a duchess if you're part of the royal family. I don't know who she is. I don't know why she's on the front cover of a newspaper, but there you go. This is the life we live. And then we've got top Starmer Mandarin firm is paid for spy ops. What? One of one of Keir Starmer's most powerful advisors last night accused of running secret diplomatic back channels to terrorists using his own taxpayer-funded team of outsourced spooks. What is even happening right now? Jonathan Powell, the Prime Minister's National Security Advisor, founded the shadowy organisation after he left Tony Blair's Downing Street, where he was Chief of Staff in the infamous dodgy dossier, helped to propel Britain into war with Iraq. Right, so we're having secret taxpayer-funded talks with rogue states. Yes. I don't understand. What's the problem? I don't understand what the problem is here, right? I assume they want this to be done by our MI5 agents who have all been outed now. I don't know. I don't even know what's happening here. Someone explain it to me. Is it because, secret taxpayer-funded talks? Good. I'm glad there's talks going on. We did talks with the IRA. We held the secret talks between the ANC and F.W. de Klerk's party in South Africa in the early 90s. We held secret talks in Britain to end apartheid in South Africa. What's the problem? We do it all the time. Someone explain to me. It's their attempt to counter the Afghanistan leak and play whataboutery. Yeah, but I've got no problem with this. I don't... Maybe they're saying it should have been done, maybe they're saying it should have been done in-house, but state of the SAS and MI6 at the moment. Maybe it's best that it is given to what was it? A shadowy organization. A shadowy organization. Okay. So it's called Intermediate, right? And it receives funding from the Foreign Office for making contact with non-state armed groups, and is understood to have brokered the UK's deal with Syria, which led to the re-establishment of diplomatic relations early this month. Good. So that's good. So good outcome then. I'd rather spend taxpayers' money on good outcomes than spending it on, civil service mandarins who don't do fuck or just screw everything up. The Mirror here, we look out for each other inside the Notebook magazine. And there's a story about Stephen Lawrence's father here. Another case of corruption, cover-ups, incompetence. Stephen Lawrence's father says one of his son's killers must start talking if he wants to get out of jail. David Norris, due to give evidence at his parole hearing next week, must name the others who knifed Stephen, 18, at a bus stop in 1993. Yeah, couldn't agree more. But again, another massive cover-up by the powers that be. The old boy network covering for itself, as it often does. So yeah, I think that brings this episode to a close, talking about incompetence at the very top of government, civil service, the military, private companies, private enterprise, corporations. Just incompetence that is rewarded incompetence, which is painful. I don't really understand. Furthermore, John Prescott was renamed Two Shags when his affair was revealed, yet the likes of James Hewitt are labelled flowery terms such as cad and love rat while doing the very same and worse. Well, yeah, I mean, that there's something deeply embedded in the language of our nation where two men can commit the same crime or the same indiscretion. And if they're working class, it'll be described in one way, using one particular set of language. And if they are rich and powerful, went to Eton College, they're described in it for doing exactly the same crime, exactly the same, display of incompetence or whatever it is, described in a different way. They use a different language set to talk about it, and that's disgraceful. It's got to stop. Kate says it's the best way to start a Sunday, well, apart from being with Jesus. Wow. I'm 46. Jesus only made it to 33. In some ways, you might say, I'm better than Jesus. Yeah. Do you like that? No, probably not. Anyway, Jesus walks into an inn with 3 nails and he says, "Can you put me up for the night?" What's this? Who put a squeaky tank on here? What is even happening right now? Why is there a squeaky tank? Oi, that was a great joke. Piss off with your squeaky tank. Right, I'm off. I will see you tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, unless I decide to do a show tonight. Or maybe Tansky might do a show tonight and I might help her. So look out for that. But otherwise, I'll be back tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for Morning Brew. And until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the chat in general. And before you go, if I could just ask for one tiny little favour, please give us a like. Just a like. Just a like. Give us a like before you go. Make it worth getting up early on a Sunday morning. Well, not that early. I was so late. Oh, my God. I'll be on time tomorrow, I promise, because it's a normal weekday. So until then, I'll say thank you so much for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and goodbye.